Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Founder. I'm your host, Alysha M. Campbell, and as always, I'm super excited to be here and to continue to share with y'all the journey that has been my life building CultureShift HR, my ups and downs, the goods, the bads, and, just how this journey has continued to impact me and influence me in ways that I never even thought possible. So from our last episode, we got a little personal with it, or I would say even like a lot personal with it. We spoke about spirituality. We spoke about how I, came into the church at a young age, learned more about myself, created a space that allowed me to learn more about my own individuality in my spirituality and how that affected my business and, how that's influenced who I am today. And so today we are actually going to talk about self-care. And we hear a lot about self-care in, I say the media, but like just in the day-to-day narrative. There's a lot of conversation around mental health, which is so important. There's a lot of conversation around self-care and taking rest, and rest not being a reward, but being a right. And, I come from a grind culture mentality where you have to work twice as hard to get half as far as your opponent. And, if you're not doing those things and you're not doing the right, practices to build your business. And I realized very quickly for myself that that wasn't going to work for me. It was something that I had done to build my corporate career where I would be up at 5 a.m, bed at 11, and would burn the candle on both ends just to do more work, just to produce more than my counterparts and, hopefully get rewarded for it during or by, promotions and salary increases and bonuses and all of those key things. But it was such a detriment to my well-being, and I didn't know any other way. It's not like people were talking and saying, hey, you should take a break. You should work less. No, I barely, if at all, anybody spoke to me about my work and the pace that I worked from a corporate perspective. My family was concerned. They shared their concerns quite honestly. But when you are on the track to success and anyone that tells you, hey, you're doing this wrong, you kind of just shut them out because you're like, well, I don't want to be like you, so leave me alone, which is what my mentality was. And I didn't realize that they were trying to actually help me and trying to actually make sure that I was taking care of myself. But all I saw was people getting in the way of what I was trying to achieve. So fast forward, I now run a business. I'm incredibly busy. I'm starting my own non-for-profit. I'm doing all these things. I'm growing my team, and self-care and mental health is more important than anything to me now. I, in fact, take my self-care incredibly seriously. I have a routine that I utilize morning and in the evening. It's something that is a part of my conversations when I talk with people. It's a part of how I encourage my team to show up and to take care of themselves. It's a way that I realize that we're not human doings, we are human beings. We of course have to work and put in effort, but we need to also create space for inspiration. We need to create space for, spiritual elements to guide and unfold and, lead the way. And I'm learning more and more that when I step back and actually rest and when I actually, take my hands off the wheel, not only do things do not go wrong, things go incredibly right, but 2, things go even better than I could ever anticipate them to be. And when I do get back into the swing of things and I start work again, or I start to, put my hands back in the clay, being that much more rested allows me to have an incredible amount of focus and opportunity and calmness that allows me to just be my absolute best self. Now, is that me every day? No. But the more that you practice self-care, the more that you focus on your mental health, the more that you make it a priority, not only does it become a routine, but you realize when you're out of sync with yourself because you now know how your body is supposed to be regulated and how it's supposed to show up. So when you're under larger amounts of stress, you can recognize it and then you can say, okay, I need to take a break. I need to take a pause. I need to let the client know this is going to be delayed a week. I need to know, I need to lie down and take a rest and I'll get back at this tomorrow morning. You actually start to make concessions and you make space for yourself. For me, self-care and mental health, I had to learn it in a way that was very uncomfortable. And a lot of us learn self-care in an uncomfortable way, because usually we think about self-care when we're sick, when we have horrible headaches, when, our health is in bad shape, where we have no energy in the middle of the day, where we're always exhausted. And you think like, why am I so tired? And then you drink more coffee and you drink, or you have more sugar and you eat more food, and not the good food, the bad food. And you're like, but why am I so tired? Why am I sick all the time? Why do I not have enough energy? And you realize you're like, this system that I have created to hold me up is falling apart. And it should fall apart, because those things were never meant to sustain us in the first place. So for myself, self-care came in the form of, my health not being the greatest. I was getting, stress rashes, acne. I was not sleeping. I was incredibly irritable. I was having, not panic attacks, but I would have anxiety. Like I would have anxious breathing, where I couldn't calm like my rhythm of my breaths. If I was working at a computer and someone were to say, "Hey, Alysha," I'd go and be like, I don't want to say scared out of my skin, but I'd have a very weird reaction, as if they just disturbed the biggest thing I was doing, and I could just have been answering an email. But because my nervous system was so on edge that if anyone would talk to me when I was working, it was a massive disruption, and I would go and just have very bad bodily reactions to anything that was not what I was working on. Work consumed me. Even when I started with CultureShift, I took bad practices that I had in corporate and I put them into my business. And sometimes, and I'm not justifying it, but sometimes, when it's just yourself, you have to wear all the hats. You have to send out the invoices first thing in the morning, or get that client work out before 9 a.m. and then, make sure all the things in the back end happen in the evening. Sometimes you do have to juggle. But I'm saying in the midst of the juggle, you have to make sure you take care of yourself, because you're no good to nobody if you are not focused on making sure that you're living well and having a good mental health program for yourself and feeling safe in your body. We don't understand the importance of feeling safe. So for me, my nervous system was all over the place. I was incredibly stressed, and I would work. And that's the thing. I would be stressed, but then I'd be like, but I go to the gym and I, lift weights and I do all these bodily things. And then I would still be stressed because my system was just so all over the place. And of course, affected my hormones and all of those types of things. So when it came to self-care for me, as I know with a lot of women, it's when you only have to focus on your self-care because you're you have no other choice. It was really hard. I didn't like it. I didn't like to slow down. For anyone who probably still knows me or knows me from the past few years, I'm a very fast person. I'm a very go, 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 get it done now. And that's how I worked. And so when you shift that and you shift to being more, take a breath, take a step back, center your breathing, close off your mind, meditate, those things, that was opposite of what I was. That was opposite of what I had known to work. So I had very much resisted it, and I hated it in the beginning, because to me, unless you're going, you're not successful. And that's how I measured my own success, and that I didn't deserve a rest, and that I didn't deserve a break because I didn't work for that break. And just these negative, toxic mentalities that society had kind of, had a narrative of. So when it came to meditation and came to having a self-care program for myself, I really started simple. I would do 5, maybe 10 minutes of meditation at night. And I would have the Calm app or the Headspace app. And I would just, utilize that as a way to introduce myself to meditation, to breathing exercises. And I honestly, in the beginning, didn't really get it. I thought it was, very new aged and this is not how real people deal with problems. But boy, was I wrong. I didn't realize, see, with a lot of these things, right? If it's not something that you talk about in your culture, you talk about in your social groups, when you start these practices, it feels very unnecessary, feels very woo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And that's how I felt about it. My parents didn't grow up, talking to me about therapy and, making sure I was, taking care of myself in that way. It just wasn't a part of the conversation. So entering these practices into my life, it felt really, really hard. And it also felt really uncomfortable. It felt like I was wasting time. And what I realized is I have to find a way to do things that work for me. And what I mean by that is you might be exploring your own mental health or self-care program or, practices, and like things don't feel like they're working. I would say 1, don't give up. But 2, what are the other things you can do? So for me, journaling was key. I actually like journaling more than the breathing, because it got all the things in my head out on a piece of paper, and it created space, because I kept feeling like I don't have space to think. It's too noisy, because my brain would literally not turn off. But when you write things down first thing in the morning and you just have a blank page of paper and you're just writing, even if it sounds like gibberish, it doesn't matter, but you're getting things out, it creates more space. So that really worked for me, which then made sense to then enter in the breathing and the meditation, because my brain actually had the space to comprehend meditation and to understand breathing. But when you're so congested in the brain, those things can't even penetrate. That sounds funny, penetrating, like I'm poking my eye out. They can't even get in. So that was incredibly helpful for me. And then because I had started doing those practices, when I had met my coach, Asha, she really then amplified that. So really helping me to understand the opportunity of mindfulness, going deeper into meditations, having intentional journal prompts and writing, introducing to EFT tapping, regulating the nervous system, doing things that bring me joy and happiness, finding out what those things are, experimenting, exploring. And as I say this, they sound very easy to do, but I tell you, they are not. And what I mean by that is, over the decades, I mean, mind you, I'm still in my 30s, so I don't have a lot of unprogramming to do. But for those who might be older, remember, not only just years of the negative, potentially negative or harmful narrative that's playing in your mind, you also have that stuff from previous generations that also might be, influencing you as well. And so saying to me, Alysha, just do the things that bring you joy, I don't even know what that is. And you have to understand that when someone asks you to do things that bring you joy and you can't figure that out, it is incredibly frustrating. It is brought me to a place of anger very quickly. 1, because, joy being such at the time an aloof concept to me, which is crazy when you think about it. But 2, the fact that I'm 30 something and I still don't know what brings me joy, that's really sad, because we're not brought on this planet to just work, and we're not just brought on this planet to just make money. We're brought on here to have impact, to be people, to be humans, to have connection, to create. And when you realize how far removed you are from that, it breaks your heart. And it really brought me to a space of like, wow, I've been really just not focused on the right things. But you learn and you move forward. So for me, actually finding out what brings me joy, and I have to have a caveat here, because I love food. I love eating. I love going out to have great big meals and all those things. But food can't be the only thing that brought me joy, right? What about going out and having a walk outside, reading a book, listening to a song, meeting new people, just even being quiet in my brain and just sitting in silence? What if it's playing with my cat? What if it's, going and just getting lost in a library? Like these little things that I now love and truly, truly cherish, I didn't realize what those things were. And I didn't make the time for them either. And so these questions that I would be constantly prompt with and kept incredibly frustrating me and creating anger in me because I was just like, oh my gosh, is it really this simple? And why can I not get it? It puts you in a space of like, one, wanting to figure it out, and two, really just stripping things back and getting back to the most basic of basic levels. And so for me, my self-care now has a very big component of what brings me joy, what brings me, and I don't mean happiness, because there's things that can make you happy, but I mean joy. Like, the difference to me between joy and happiness is that joy is like elation, like you were over the moon. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have anything that's going to put me over the moon, or I don't have anything that's going to make me feel elated and on top of the world. You got to find it. You have to find it. And it doesn't have to be big. When we think of these big words, we think that a big action has to come with them. It doesn't. I get joy, honestly, just having my face to the sun. I get joy from just snuggling with my cat. I get joy from this podcast, which, you know, it's so funny how that's so full circle. But I do. Like, I could be like having I'm having a good, an okay day. And I'm like, I'm going to record, and my attitude totally changes because I love, this brings out a piece of me that has been dying to get out for years. But there's something, and you got to find it. And it's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. And I say that with a smile because I'm like, if you really want to find the joy, you got to put in the work. If you really want to find self-care that works for you, you do have to search. You have to try things. You have to experiment. You have to be vulnerable. You have to open up. You have to talk. You have to share. Like, self-care is more than just giving yourself things to do. It's about opening up yourself to the world and saying, I'm challenging what I was told I needed to do, and I'm putting myself first, and I'm figuring out what that means. And I'm okay if I mess up. I'm okay if something doesn't work out. I'm okay if it does not make sense, because I'm going to find the answer. And going on that journey is scary. It is scary, and it can feel very lonely. But I share that to say that as you're doing this journey, you are going to learn more about yourself. You're going to learn more about the world. You are going to know more about your purpose. And it brings you into a really, really, really beautiful state. And to the point where you're like, hey, self-care all day, every day. And I say that because if I could go back and I could look at myself, I take naps in the middle of the day. Hands down. If I wake up and I got some work to do, I'll get it done. And then I'll be like, I got 30 minutes. I'm going to go lie down. And I lie down, I close my eyes, I get a power nap, and I get up and I get right back at it. I never used to do that before, but I love my naps. I love that I create space to rest and to just nourish myself. I love that I create space for my mind to be quiet and to listen to my inner voice. How can you listen to your inner voice and your intuition if it's crowded all day? And that's what I found out the most. Like, through all this self-care stuff, you're quieting the noise to hear yourself again, to listen to the power within you that is telling you what to do or how to explore, or how to think. And it is so beautiful when you can connect back to that piece, to that place. It's transformative. So as you go through this, understand that it's going to take time. It might be very easy for you, and it might be a struggle, but take your time, explore, give yourself grace. This is something that is new for you, and you don't know where to start. You don't have to be perfect. This is not about perfection. If you don't take anything else away from this conversation, know that this is not about perfection. This is about exploring and understanding who you are in your being so that you can nourish your being to bring it out in the best way possible. That is the purpose of self-care. That is the purpose of doing the things that you're meant to do for yourself so that you can bring yourself into the best place possible. It's really interesting because, again, if you're not in these circles that talk about these things, the general narrative in the world is not this. And so, it can feel very lonely. It can feel very like, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess this up. You can't mess it up. As long as you try and you put forward your best effort, you are going to do a good job in making all of this, fit in and make it space for you and make this an important part of your life. But for me, self-care and my mental health is everything. Like I said, I have a practice morning and night. I take naps throughout the day, when my schedule affords me to. And if I'm really tired and I really don't have the energy to do things in my day, I move what I can move. I build my schedule so that I'm not so locked in. I try to give myself flexibility. I give myself grace. I'm not too hard on myself. I know that I'm enough, that me just existing is enough. Me breathing is enough. I journal, I write, I love creative writing. I love catching up with friends. I love watching things that make me laugh, make me smile. I love good food. And that's my self-care. But I always ask myself, what part am I feeding myself? What part is being fed by this action? If I'm meditating, am I feeding my brain? Am I feeding my spirit? Am I feeding my inner child? If I'm journaling or writing, is this feeding my creativity? If I'm going for a walk, is this feeding my spirit? Like, I ask myself what part is being activated by this, because it can activate different parts of you. But I implore you to really take the time to explore, ideate, think about what self-care means for you, identify the activities that allow you to do that, and practice, explore, experiment. Don't worry about getting it perfect. And it's going to evolve. My practice has evolved over the months. I love my meditations. I love my EFT tapping. I love being able to be quiet and quieted in the mind. I love being at peace. And then I love being engaged and talking and getting things done. But without that, that time to do that, I can't amplify the other work that I do. I can't show up here. I can't do this without my self-care. So I hope that gives y'all an insight into me and what I do and the importance of self-care, and to let it go. And especially as an entrepreneur where there's so much pressures on us, to know that your self-care is just as important as your bottom line, and your self-care will positively impact your bottom line as well. It will allow you to have better focus, better intention, better action, think more clearly, and that's all going to have a positive influence on your business. And you're going to create space to draw in the things that are meant for you and your business as well. So explore, find out what self-care is for you, take the time to experiment, have fun with it, do the things that not only bring you, happiness, but that light you up and bring you joy and just make you feel like you're floating. And take the time to give yourself the grace that allows you to be so present in who you are, and knowing that you are here for a purpose, you are here on purpose, and there is nothing that is impossible for you to do. If you can imagine it, you can make it a reality, and I am a living testament of that. So I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Hashtag self-care Sundays, and it's a Saturday as I record this. But honestly, take the time. I hope y'all, feel inspired to go on that walk, call that friend, take that nap, and just be present in wanting to be intentional about the care that you give yourself, the love that you give yourself, because you are worthy of all the love and of all the care in the world. And so thank you again for taking the time to listen in, to allowing us to be a part of your regular scheduled programming. I appreciate y'all so much. The comments, the likes, the shares, everything and everything. Thank you so, so, so much. Again, this podcast is a massive part of what sparks me and what brings me joy. And knowing that it's connecting with all of you in the best way possible just makes the smile on my face that much bigger. So I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Continue to stay safe, and we will see you on the flip side.